Welcome, my name's Tailser, and today we're going to be talking about the Five Nights at Freddy's series, the original series. I just recently played through it, so I wanted to give my thoughts on where it's at and my experience, was 10 years later or so from when it actually released. So we're going to go through them one at a time, and then we'll kind of cover general points that apply to all of them. Special notes, I didn't really get to play 2, so I'm not really going to have a lot to say on that. We're probably going to skip over it. It wouldn't run. It just kept crashing. But for Five Nights at Freddy's 1, the original, I also had some crashing technical issues there, so I could not complete the game even if I tried. There were just too many things happening on I think it was the last night, where it just kept triggering the crashes over and over and over again. I tried compatibility modes running as admin, nothing seemed to work, so not much I can do there. But we got through most of it, and I would say as something different, it's a pretty fun game. It was interesting. Definitely tried some new things compared to games of the time, and even now, very different, and I like that actually. Definitely a little rough around the edges, needed some iteration, which would come up in the later games, but overall a pretty decent experience without having any kind of like rose-tinted glasses or being like, well, for 10 years ago. No, just for now, I would still give it like a 6 or a 7, somewhere in that range. It was pretty fun. The jump scares were pretty good. It's not a very long experience, but I think that plays in its favor when you're talking about things like jump scares. They're kind of a cheap scare, to be honest. Just there's no other way to describe it. It's a bit cheap. It's easy to get, you startle someone. So you can't do it like 10, 20, 30 times. It doesn't have the same impact. Not really. I suppose I could act it, but it doesn't actually scare you after the first 5 or so, especially if the same exact one, unless they catch you off guard. That's a good way to refresh it. But in general, yeah, you don't want to do that for 10 hours or something. It would kind of get old, huh? But yeah, a 6 or a 7. It's a pretty good game. Pretty good game. Moving on to 2, like I said, we're going to skip over that. I don't really have any input. From videos I have seen of it, and from what people have told me, it iterated, added a few extra mechanics, expanded on the series, nothing crazy. Added the mask. That was an interesting one, which adds to the lore quite a bit, and, more phone calls and stuff. But again, I couldn't play it. I couldn't even, start the first night, really. So, unfortunate. As for the third game, no crashes as far as I remember. There might have been one, but nothing crazy, not like 1 or 2. And I have mixed feelings on the new mechanics they tried there. Ventilation having errors and causing you to hallucinate. It was okay, but I don't know if I just got really bad luck or I didn't really know what I was doing. I tried reading a few little guides, pointers, and tips. Did not help me all that much. I could not get past one of the nights, and it was just, eventually I gave up. I was spending way too much time on it. So called it a night at some point and said, all right, I'm just not finishing this one. It was interesting. I liked that there was only one real threat like that. That was an interesting choice to make. The ventilation was, again, an interesting idea. I don't think I ever actually really interacted with the vents themselves. Plenty of ventilation errors. The hallucinations were also a really cool idea, but I just don't know that it was executed particularly well. It seemed like the choices were made to kind of extend the experience out, make it last longer, because you lose more often when a long list of things happen that you have no control over that just knock you out. You can't recover from getting 3 of the jump scares in a row. Everything's erroring out. Tons of noise went off in the security room. He's coming. You can't do anything about it. It's over, and you had no real chance to avoid that. I'm sure it's doable. I'm sure you just I got unlucky a few times, and I did things wrong a few times. Don't get me wrong, but on the whole, it seemed a little bit harsh. Even so, if I had more time for it, I think it would have been fun, and I would have eventually gotten through it. Really cool for lore and stuff as well. Not going crazy into that here, but pretty good game overall. I would give that one closer to a 7 or an 8. I think that was a better entry than the first in terms of the actual experience as a player. It was interesting. It was tense, scary several times. Really got me. But overall, yeah, pretty good game. I would recommend it for, you know, a reasonable price. I think they're all like a couple dollars, essentially, less than 10. So it's not a crazy deal for the couple hours you'll get out of them. 3 is stable as far as I know. Yeah, like it ran fine, so not an issue like 1 and 2. 4 though, we're gonna spend some time on this one. So the interesting part about 4, the biggest change from any other game that I've ever played. Like, I've not encountered this in any other horror game that I've watched or played. Mainly watched. I'm easily scared when I play alone, all right? Leave me alone. I haven't played too many of them off stream, but I do watch them. I enjoy watching other people play them. So I've never seen this one before. Very unique idea. I think it was a fun concept, but not for me anyway, which is that it wanted you to crank the volume up. Normally I listen to things at like around 20% or lower, you know, maybe up to 30 if I'm really like, if it's really quiet or something. I get uncomfortable past that just because I know that if something cranks the volume, it's gonna be loud for me. Like, it's gonna hurt my ears. I'm not gonna be happy. It wanted me to go to 80%, which is like way too much when the jump scare hits. It's gonna be super loud. So I was like, okay, I'm not really sure I'm comfortable doing that. I don't want to do this. So I tried to avoid that. Did not work. I got jumped several times because it was just like, I couldn't hear the cue that I needed to hear to take the right action. I was like, okay, fine, I'll turn it up a bit. I turned it up to like 60, which is still way louder than I'm comfortable with. And yeah, I could hear a lot more, but I still couldn't hear the cue that they wanted you to listen to, which was like at the very bottom of what you can hear. So obviously still got jump scared, but now even louder. And I was like, okay, that's already beyond my limit of what I'm okay with. I'm not doing what they want me to do here. I just can't do it. And I know the games don't have options menus or anything, but if there was ever a time to have an option or a slider or something in any of the games, it was then. And it was just to bring that range, you know, condense it down so that you could hear it without blowing your eardrums out when Chica gets you. You know, that's all I would ask. That would make the game infinitely better and I would be able to play it. If that's something that doesn't bother you, it's probably a pretty good game. It bothers me though, so if you're like me, I would say you're probably going to give it like a 3 or 4 out of 10. It is not a good game for people who don't want to crank the volume. Now, of course, if you want to try it, Steam has a very generous refund policy, so if you're like, yeah, this is unplayable for me, they'll give it to you as long as you haven't played it for too long. I think it's like 2 hours currently. So, you know, worth a shot if you're not sure. From what I've heard and read and watched, it's a very important game in the series. I just can't do it. So, bit of a bummer there, but that's a very personal rating. I don't know what it would be if I could actually play the game and enjoy it. So probably still up there in terms of like, oh, it has like innovative gameplay, it's interesting, it's fun, it's a reasonably compact experience, all those things. As with 3 and 1 are the ones I was able to play. So basically I was only able to play 2 out of the 4 games for various technical and like personal reasons, which is a bit disappointing, but it is what it is. With these older indie games, I'm not that surprised that it didn't go perfectly. But speaking from like what I just know about the series in general, my own knowledge, not necessarily my experience playing them, they're pretty fun. You know, again, if you can play them. So, you know, worth a shot. While I say that, there are some persistent issues with the experimentation that has gone on throughout each of them. A lot of the mechanics aren't like super refined. I mentioned RNG. It seems to be in all of them, where most events are somewhat random. But in 3 specifically, I don't know how well this applies to the other ones, but in 3 specifically, you could get a lot of like repeat nights almost where the wrong things happen and at the wrong times where you have no control over it. And you couldn't have seen it coming, like you couldn't have been necessarily prepared for it. And it just does not pan out. You cannot finish the night. Tough stuff. You know, it's just literally bad luck. And while I understand that that might be something you want to happen at fringes, you know, like rarely you'll have like, you can't beat it. It's just not possible kind of nights, especially if you want to deliver certain lore stuff, you know, you want to have that opportunity, but you can kind of force that instead of having it be also random and just making it really hard to complete. Like, I think there's better solutions than making people suffer essentially through a night that you just have to repeat constantly until you just get lucky, essentially. I really would like to see 1 and 2 updated so that they actually work. That would be cool. I'd love it to play 2. I'll be keeping an eye on it though to see if it ever updates. But on the whole, yeah, no, not a bad series. I think I'll have more feelings on it after I complete Security Breach. That's what we're playing on stream coming up. So far, you know, we've played a little bit of Security Breach. It's not as intense for obvious reasons. Like, that's a very different game. But I'm hoping that it makes up for that in some other ways. I'm not confident it will, but I'm hoping it does. There have been some intense moments, but it's just not the same, like... It's not the same experience, which I suppose it's not meant to be, but... From what I did get to play, it was a really intense and... kind of emotional experience to go through, because you were always on edge the whole time. Like, the tension was really high whenever you were playing, so yeah, we'll probably revisit this topic just a little bit after I complete Security Breach and I give my thoughts on that game. You know, maybe a little note on like, oh, well, you know, I learned this or that. But on the whole, yeah, not a bad series, even now. Just keep an eye out for the technical issues and things like that, you know, personal stuff. And don't be afraid to refund it if you cannot play it. Like, that is something very much to keep in mind. You have the option, so worst case, you try it and it just like it doesn't work or whatever, you're not going to lose out on your money or anything. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I stream here on YouTube as well as on Twitch if that's something you're into. Otherwise,